if you are a real fresh grad, right? Like say if you have never even interned before, then yes, you would most likely be put on toilet duties.
Toilet duties is as in designing toilets.
Yeah, designing the toilet.
Welcome to the One Day at a Time podcast, where we take things one day at a time. Today in the studio, we have Mitch.
Hi, this is Mitch over here. I am an assistant architect at a local architecture firm. Currently dealing with big projects to small projects. Big projects would kind of include like mega warehouses in Singapore, or logistics buildings, or semiconductor factories. And sometimes I also do buildings all the way down to the scale of houses or churches. Yeah. As you may know, there's this meme out there that 90% of the time architects spend their time on toilet design mostly.
Yeah. Is it true?
It's actually quite true because clients can be quite specific on how they want their toilets to be. Yeah.
I like how when you were describing it, you said all the way down to houses and churches, which can be quite big. But I assume that's because some of the buildings that you design is really quite big scale, right? Like
yes,
huge.
Many hectares worth of floor area.
Okay, so I wanted to have Mitch on today because I think what Mitch does is quite interesting, and recently I'm discovering a little bit more of the architectural world, and I realized that it is not as simple as what most of us believe to be, right? So when we were catching up over dinner, I was chatting to you, and I realized that actually there are a lot of layers to like the architectural work. There are different types of people who do different things. Because I think for many people, I don't know if it's many people or myself I had the impression that you go to school, you become a certified architect, and then you just design buildings. Like that's it, right? But it's not like that, right? There are many like stages to it. Like for example, now you're an assistant architect, right? And you were working in architecture for quite a while already, since 2020.
Yes.
Right. Until now, you are still only an assistant architect. Can you explain to us this? What are the different roles involved in the architecture, and what is the general like hierarchy per se?
I think the kind of hierarchy that's present at architecture firms in Singapore might vary between how big your firm is. For mine, is quite traditional, where there are actually teams of people who are involved in the technical side of things. So actually kind of to do with drafting. I'm not sure if you understand what is AutoCAD. Basically, they're doing the 2D drafting on the computer to come out with the plans and sections. There are also teams of people who are doing more like project management. So they're the ones who are more client facing. They're the ones that are also going out to kind of get the proposals in, kind of doing the proposal presentation so that we can win the jobs, that kind of thing. And in between is where you kind of get where the assistant architect is, which is kind of the people who are assistant to the architect. So you're doing kind of a supporting role where you're wearing many hats. The three hats mainly being a designer first and foremost. Secondly, being the project manager for the day-to-day kind of things, where you're constantly dealing with calls all day, WhatsApp messages all day. And then thirdly, whatever you're designing, whatever you're communicating with your client or other stakeholders, you are actually more or less trying to explain to them and also help them to make their wishes come true in terms of compliance to the authorities in Singapore, like NEA, NParks, LTA, BCA. All the authorities are the kind of people that we have to deal with on a daily basis. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So you are an assistant architect, right? So basically, you are the Saikang warrior.
In a way, when you graduate out of school, like after 5 years, right? Like 4 years of bachelor, 1 year of masters. When you enter the industry, you still kind of enter right at the bottom, and this is where you learn the most, I would say.
So what does so like you as an assistant architect, and then like you have the people that deal with the clients, and then the people who make the plans, AutoCAD. So what does an actual architect, a certified architect, actually do? What is the day-to-day like for the guy?
Yeah. Once again, I would say it's also down to the size of the firm, because like when I was still in school and interning, I actually was interning at a husband and wife architecture firm. So it's only 2 people. So these 2 people like it or not, they have to take on the technical role where they are the ones actually designing. In that case, was on SketchUp or on AutoCAD. So they're spending, burning midnight oil in order to come up with a design so that in the next morning they can go and explain the design to the client. And whatever I mentioned previously also still persists. That means all the legal things that you have to handle with authorities, and you have to draw, you have to
Right.
handle legal,
Right.
and you have to talk to your client.
I see. So essentially, if you're running like your own architectural firm, you basically have to do everything, right? Like from the sales to
Everything
the
包括了。
drawing to the account.
Yes.
Okay, basically like a entrepreneurial type thing lah.
Yeah.
In a bigger firm like the one you're in, right, or other firms, there are I guess more roles and things like this. For example, you, right, you are the assistant architect. So what does your lead architect actually? What's the responsibility of the lead architect?
I believe in a bigger firm, the lead architect normally is there to kind of be the eager eye watching over everything, right?
Right.
Because usually there would be a team of assistant architects to handle specific tasks within a project.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
and,
like, can I say that different assistant architects might specialize in different areas of the project, different things. So for example, you specialize in designing toilets, and like the other guy specializes in something else. Is that usually correct?
I could give a specific example where I am working with other assistant architects. So one of the mega projects that I'm working on, it's kind of an impossible task to just be like on your lead architect and one assistant. So we do have a small team of people working on this, wherein, say for instance, for myself, I'm working on the part of this multi-warehouse project. That means it's a mega project wherein you have multiple blocks of warehouses rather than you're just working on one, right? So for me, I am working on on the dangerous goods sides of things. That means there's very specific authority code that you have to comply to in order to bring dangerous goods into Singapore.
Right.
And then my colleague, for instance, he specializes in the cold room aspect of things, because you not only store general goods, which is handling room temperature things, but there's also like food and pharmaceuticals where you have to have degrees of like minus 20 something degrees, that kind of thing. So he understands what are the materials required for that, what are the specifications required for that. I understand what's required for dangerous goods.
And then the lead architect will essentially supervise everything.
Oversee the whole project.
Right. So if I may draw a comparison, it's kind of like the in a mega project lah. Like the lead architect is kind of like the director of a movie. Then you have your different camera operators. You have the director of photography. You have the director of the music and whatever. Then the main guy, which is the director, just orchestrates everything and makes sure everything runs smoothly. Like the lead architect lah.
Yeah, to put it simply, the director provides the direction of the team.
Fair enough. Okay, so you've been working in this industry for quite a while, like for almost 4 years. 4 years actually, right? More than 4 years.
About that.
And how does one go from doing like what you were doing in the beginning, right? Which is, I guess, like grunt work, administrative stuff right out of school, to becoming a assistant architect, then eventually become a lead architect? Like, what is the roadmap look like?
Are you asking for a specifically my story, or for
generally? Generally, yeah.
Okay, so generally, yes. If you are a real fresh grad, right? Like say if you have never even interned before, then yes, you would most likely be put on toilet duties.
Okay.
Right.
So as in toilet duties is as in designing toilets.
Yeah, designing the toilet. Yeah, because there is a lot of ergonomics involved in toilet design lah. Not to put that part of designing down. Every part of designing is very important.
Right.
God is in the detail, right? Yeah. So, say as a fresh grad, you'll be put on that sort of specific design duties. But they would also try to immediately expose you to client-facing activities, kind of you can come along for meetings, maybe you write minutes, that kind of thing. And then most of the time also is to quickly introduce you to all the authority requirements, like I listed all the different authorities earlier, right?
Yeah.
So we have to familiarize ourselves with all the code of practices and Singapore standards.
which is quite high, right?
It's quite high and dry. But the good thing is that we actually do have projects to work on, and then once we encounter all these challenges and issues and complications, then we start to know
You
the
learn very
code more.
fast.
You learn on the
Yeah.
job. Yeah.
I see. So there is it. You mentioned like just now when we were chatting off camera that it took you a while to become a assistant architect because that wasn't really what you set out to be in the beginning, right? So
Yeah.
if you don't become an assistant architect and eventually a lead architect, what can you do within architecture as a trained architectural person?
I would say for my case, well, it's also quite similar to quite a few people in the industry out there who would maybe decide to take a couple of years to decide whether they would like to become a qualified person. That's the official term for an architect lah. So the reason we kind of have this kind of moment of trying to think of whether to go the professional route, it's because first of all, being a qualified person, of course, carries a huge responsibility. You are the the qualified person who's signing off the design of the building. You have the responsibility to ensure that the building actually are compliant to the authorities, especially fire. Right? Actually, at least in my industry, to do with warehouses and all that, I would say 90% of the time, it's dealing with fire code, dealing with SCDF code, right? Because whether the design is nice or not, at the end of the day, most importantly is that if there's a fire, you need to be able to save lives. Yeah. So there is that kind of principle that must be held quite highly. So an architect, it's not an ID because an ID doesn't have that kind of responsibility where you have to ensure these kind of things, whereas an architect does. Yeah.
Right. So if you don't choose to go the certification route to become a architect, what do people do in make design toilets or
no lah. So
So what do you do?
so as we discussed like before the recording of this, right?
Yeah.
If you're not a qualified architect, there are several fun things that you could do. You know, for myself, when I just got out of when I just graduated, I actually entered this company not really as being an architect, although I am architecturally trained. What kind of drew my eye to kind of interview for this job was this technological element that this company had specifically. So like out of university, okay, I can talk about what I was doing for my graduate thesis first lah.
Right.
Right. So for that, I was actually very interested in technology already. So I was kind of using Unreal Engine to create kind of a second Bugis in Singapore. Kind of a bit ties back to you and I. We have a history in music, so
Right.
I was developing this virtual district using Unreal Engine as my architectural thesis. And then from there, that kind of became my portfolio in order to enter this company, who was also interested in using things like Unreal to be able to show clients their building or their design.
Right.
So I actually joined this company through that route, where for the first year I was kind of focusing on learning kind of apart from the rendering and the modeling, also parametric design. So you're kind of using parametric controls to kind of design your building rather than just to manually CAD it out on the computer. Yeah, so I started out that route first, before finally realizing that with these capabilities that I now have, I would like to bring it into a higher level as a qualified person, because there's not many qualified persons out there or architects out there who actually has this kind of technological capabilities where they understand this thing called BIM, which is building info modeling. Yeah. So many architects out there currently are actually still more on a project management role, or they're kind of they advise the assistant architects, where I felt that because I already had about 1 or 2 years of growing this knowledge, I can actually bring that more into the qualified part of the practice.
Right. Wow. So actually, your personal journey in architecture is quite unique to you, lah.
Yeah.
Right. Because you started with the whole like using tech to kind of enhance the whole architectural process and everything.
Yeah. But we'll
Right.
say that there are some maybe more niche architectural firms, but they're doing pretty amazing things out there, which maybe is not even related to technology.
Right.
Right. Like sometimes, especially for houses, you could begin a house just by through a painting. Like you maybe go to your client's site where they want to buy the house. It's maybe an empty plot of land, or maybe there's already an existing house there.
Right.
You sit down with a canvas and you paint out your idea. You could even start your designing from there. Yeah. But for me, it's through technology. That's kind of what I was kind of crazy about when I was in school, and yeah, that's kind of my trajectory from there.
Oh wow, okay. So essentially because of that, you were working on that for a while, and then now you are on your way to becoming an architect as a assistant architect.
Yeah.
And then eventually what you hope to do is to implement some of the technology stuff that you have already have experience in into your architectural work as a certified architect.
Yes.
Something like that.
Something like that. So as an assistant architect now, without much of that responsibility of being a qualified person, I've had the freedom to play around with technology when dealing with clients. Right? For instance, one of the houses that I'm doing with a qualified architect right now, the very beginning of the project, we developed immediately in 3D. So we skipped the whole 2D part
Like
of it.
AutoCAD and
We skipped the AutoCAD. We went into this program called Revit. Architects will know what that program is. And immediately using Revit and several other kinds of plugins, you could put on a VR headset and immediately step into your building.
Wow.
Right.
Oh, that's unreal. I mean, no pun intended. But,
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, is this a common thing, or is quite unique to what you do?
I think it's definitely something that's growing and trending now. I'm not exactly sure how many architectural firms out there is adopting this, but the technology is definitely readily available. Even for schools, if schools wanted to use it, they can just buy a headset and then you just put on the headset and you can walk around your design. So one of the key good things about using the VR that I realized is that it's kind of like everybody should have watched The Matrix. Right? I'm not sure who hasn't watched The Matrix, but basically, as a client, you're in the headset, you're looking around, you can ask for something, and immediately as an architect, I can draw it in for you. I can generate it for you while you're in there. So say if I want my kitchen counter to shift by a meter, from my side, from outside the VR headset, right? I can just shift the kitchen cabinet for you.
And you can basically make it to scale, sort of, right?
Everything is to scale when you're in VR, yeah.
Oh, that's insane.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, okay, I guess I've never really needed to design a building before. I'm not, but like imagine I needed to. That would be actually pretty insane.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like could there be like a simulation where let's say it's like a 6-story building, then like you have an elevator, then like I walk into the elevator and then it brings me up to the 6th floor.
Well, using proprietary softwares out there, you can't
Okay,
it's
okay,
still
fair
VR, so you kind of have to click and
you have to
kind of
manually
move from place to place.
Right.
Yeah,
But that's very cool.
Yeah.
It is very, very cool to begin with, lah. Wow. Okay. So as a certified architect, apart from having the work experience and everything, is there like a exam that you have to go through to get certified?
Yes, so becoming an architect is a really long winding road. So it takes about I would say, okay, so from the start, when you express interest to the Board of Architects in Singapore, from that moment you are given a logbook, a physical logbook where you have to fill up kind of like timesheet of quarterly, every quarterly.
Like it's an actual book. It's not like an Excel sheet.
Yeah,
or
it's an actual book. So
yeah.
An actual book where you have to log 2 years worth of working experience. So there's a list in there which kind of explains quite well exactly in general what are all the different roles an architect is supposed to do in your whole 2 years of experience. So the whole point of the logging is at least for me, it's a really good summary. Every 3 months when I write things down, it's like, oh, I actually experienced this, I experienced that. The whole point is to log your challenges that you face and what's your thought process, because these are the kind of things that the board of architects wants to see and to read about to know whether you are there or not to become an architect. Yeah.
Wow. So like in 2 years, you have to write in a physical book.
Of course, these days there's the Word file version of it where you can type everything out and you print out anyway lah. Yeah, but you have to
Okay.
compile a book at the end of the day.
Got it.
So there's that 2 years of logging. There is also a case study which you have to pick 1 or 2 projects that you have gone through from the beginning, from the designing stage all the way to actually not even before designing. There's also the proposal. Like you need to kind of tender your proposal to certain clients in order for them to accept you as architect. So there's it begins from there all the way down to actually finishing the project at a CSC stage, which is basically the full completion of the project.
Yep.
Yeah, so you need to log that. Then after that, there is still the exam that you need to take. It's a 2-part exam. One of it being authorities, and then the other one being about contracts.
Okay.
I think like I mentioned earlier, we are also contract administrators where we deal with claims and all that kind of thing.
Right.
And then finally, once you have passed all of that, you sit for an interview or 2, and the board of architects in totality, a small group of people will decide whether you are ready to become a qualified person, or they can ask you to continue, maybe sit for another exam or sit for more interviews. Yeah.
So how do you have to what do you have to do to maintain your certification, or is it just like perpetual?
Okay, yeah. So for certification wise, I can't remember how many points, but according to my more senior architects, they have to go for workshops and tutorials sometimes to kind of clock in some points and renew them. I am not entirely sure, is it every year or every 2 years? I believe it's every year. Yeah.
Right, like CPD like
Yeah.
okay. Wow. So in your opinion, right, is it out of 10 if you have to rate 1 to 10, right? How difficult is it to become an architect?
Granted, I am not an architect yet.
Fair enough. But based on because you're on the way there,
Yeah,
right?
I'm on the way there, but I have been extremely humbled by the process thus far.
Yeah, I would think so. It sounds very hard. Very hard.
At least for my personality, the authorities part maybe is not such an issue because it's kind of it's whether it works or it doesn't work, with whatever is out there in terms of compliance. With contracts, it's like a whole other side of the coin where you're dealing with people, you're trying to gauge whether the contractor had completed their works in time, whether they are being paid fairly and all that kind of things. Yeah. So all in all, actually the designing part maybe is actually kind of like the easiest because we already spent 5 years, some of us longer, in school learning how to design, learning how to deliberate what is good design or not. But in terms of the contract and authority compliance part, it's something that you really have to learn on the job. Sometimes 2 years really isn't enough to like fully grasp the entirety of it. Yeah. And and I think some architects would say that even though they've been doing this for 30 to 40 years, they are still they still feel very humbled by this whole experience, and it's a forever learning process. Yeah.
How long does one have to go to school in order to even work in architecture?
Okay. Let's say just for the Singapore context.
Yeah, Singapore context.
Say if you did learn designing in ITE, you could come out to become a drafter in the architecture industry, right? Even if you have gone through Polytechnic, you're a Polytechnic graduate, when you come out, you could either choose to go the drafting route, or some actually are capable of becoming assistant architects themselves, or assistant or architectural designers. Yeah, so they can do some design work if their portfolio nice lah. Then for university graduates, then yeah, you come out as assistant architects, of course, with the trajectory being you eventually become a qualified architect. Yeah.
Right. So you must have some form of education in architectural design in order to even work in architecture, right?
Personally, I've not heard of anyone in modern Singapore times being totally not trained in architecture and coming into the architecture field.
Because it's quite complicated, right?
Yeah, it is complicated. But there are famous architects out there who are famous for having not been architecturally trained at all.
Right.
The overseas kind of star architects out there.
Star architects.
Yeah.
Nice. So one question that I'm quite curious to know is okay, so let's just focus in on assistant architects and architects, right?
Okay.
What is the salary range of an entry level assistant architect and a like an architect with a lot of experience? What is the general range of salary look like in Singapore? Do you have any idea? Like roughly.
Roughly, because I graduated during COVID, so the salary range was a bit lower back then. I'm pretty sure right now it's better. For me, it was around 3.5 as a graduate. Yeah,
right,
starting.
But you weren't an assistant architect
No.
then. Right?
You immediately come in as an assistant architect.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Right. So, okay, then let's go to the other end of the spectrum. As an experienced architect, right?
Yeah.
How much can an experienced architect, like a certified architect, like earn? What's the range?
That one currently, I actually have no comment. I have no idea.
I see. Okay, but eventually you'll know.
Eventually, I know. Hopefully, it'll be much better than what I started out with.
For sure. It definitely will be. Because I know quite a few architects, like we're not very close to them, but I know quite a few architects, and the story seems to be that they make quite a bit of money. I don't know how much is quite a bit lah, but they also work quite crazy hours because there's a lot of coordination. There's a lot of, like sometimes clients are available on like weekday nights, weekend, especially if they're doing like residential projects and things like that. So it seems like they don't ever sleep on. It's like there's like forever something to do. Right? Is that similar to your experience with the architects that you work with also?
Yeah, this I can most definitely comment on it. I would say my time in my current firm has been pretty blessed lah. Also to do with the kind of clientele that you have.
Right.
I would say maybe the kind of architects that probably deals with more like homeowners.
Right, residential projects.
Or commercial projects.
Right.
For residential projects specifically, because you need to look at the homeowner's perspective, they are also working. So the only time they can have a meeting with the architect would be
weekends
after work,
or weekday night,
weekday nights or weekends. So for the kind of projects that I do, like industrial projects, our clients are sometimes also architects or they're project managers who are doing this full time. So if they want to clock off at 5:30 or 6, they also wouldn't want to have meetings beyond that kind of timing.
Right.
Of course, when we are rushing for deadlines, of course, there's the burning of midnight oil. When there is proposals coming in, because when we are alerted for a fee proposal, usually the amount of time we have is like 1 or 2 weeks. So you really do need to rush out a proposal. So at least for me, it's kind of on a wave. There are certain lull periods, there are certain peak periods. So I'm quite grateful for that. But I do understand that for people who are doing more residential projects, it can be quite unforgiving, especially if you keep having a lot of homeowners coming in to always check in on their house, because everybody is so concerned about their house, right? That's where they're going to live in for maybe their entire life.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So if today, right, and someone is listening or watching and they are actually keen to become an architect or work in the architectural industry, and they're still studying, right? What would be your advice? What would be your 2 cents for them as someone that is like quite almost there, almost on your way to be almost becoming an architect, gone through the whole education system of the whole architectural thing.
Sorry, on the way to becoming an architect or
So
joining
like
the architecture industry?
someone is keen to join the industry and they haven't like they're choosing like where to study or like how would you go about doing that?
Okay, so depending on what stage of you are in life, maybe you're deciding to go uni lah. So in Singapore, I think it's quite binary between SUTD and NUS. Right. So I think most people would see SUTD as kind of more the kind of parametric design route where you're using your computer or AI to come and design your buildings. So SUTD is pretty strong in that. Whereas NUS, I would say, is more strong on the traditional way of learning architecture, where you actually learn about the history of architecture in different forms, like modern architecture or Asian architecture. So in terms of traditional design principles, I think NUS is the way to go. If you're interested in the computing things, maybe SUTD is the way to go. But like just from my own experience, I went to NUS, but then in the end, my final thesis was all about technology.
Right.
And then I joined a company who is very technology focused.
Right.
So it could go either way. But the point maybe is when deciding which school you want to go to, maybe see what's your own personal interest. Do you, are you maybe more artistic or are you more interested in technology? Like, are you on the computer all the time? So that may be what guides you on where to go.
Right. And how long did you study in NUS for? Quite a long time, right?
Yeah. So at minimum, you can graduate with bachelor's with that will be 4 years.
4 years, yeah.
So it's +1 to get masters.
And that's what you did, right?
Yeah, that's what I did.
So you graduated with the master's degree, then you went to work.
Yeah. I also went to poly, so I went a bit of a longer route.
I see.
Yeah. I also know some people who like went through ITE to poly to uni and then with masters. Those are really amazing people.
Right.
Who really they have steel in their bones. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean that many years of experience. Once you are out of school, you already like have quite many years of experience behind you already. Maybe not practical, but still like doing the work and stuff, right?
I would say actually, again Singapore context only. I can't really speak for the whole
world.
Yeah. When you come out of poly with architecture training, sometimes they do fare a bit better in the working world because they have done drafting before, right? They understand what is the kind of day-to-day process. Whereas say you only go through university to study architecture, sometimes you're not really that aware of what happens on a day-to-day basis, and sometimes they do get a bit of a culture shock. Because in school, really, you're just doing design all the time.
Yeah.
Of course, there's deadlines to meet, but those deadlines is kind of whether my building makes sense or not.
Right.
But in the real working world, your deadline is like, can I actually finish this drawing in time or not?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Got it. Yeah. Well, so it's a different type of experience going through the different types of architectural education.
Yeah.
Right. When you were in NUS, apart from you studying, that's kind of how we met, right? You also have an interest in basically producing music, which,
yes.
right, we should do like under the moniker of Mitch Advent, which I think some people would say, some people being me, that it is quite similar to designing things, right? It's like just that in the case of music is designing a song like a track and like in electronic music, which is what you do, quite a lot of interesting I would say not super normal mainstream type of music. It's very don't use the word experimental, but it's kind of like building stuff. You're taking interesting things and putting together. Is that something that you kind of resonate with? Like, you just like to build things.
Yeah, I think, well, my love for being creative started out at a very young age, but I don't think we need to go entirely into that.
Yeah.
But yes, during university, when I was still also at the time still just learning electronic music production, right? I did try to like on paper draw a mind map of how the structure of a building actually relates to the structure of a song. Like the kind of foundations that you need in a song and the kind of aesthetic that you kind of, the facade that you have in a song, that kind of thing. So on that level, yes, it is quite interesting to pass the connection between okay lah. For example, foundation of a building, like or maybe the structure of your building is maybe your drum and bass.
Right. Yeah, correct.
Because that
the
kind of
most
carries
prominent part
that
of
kind of
the-
carries the song.
Yeah.
Whereas your building facade maybe is kind of like your melody, right?
Right.
Whereas maybe the rooms of your building is your
Right. Like the filler
chords,
parts
the
in
chords,
between. Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Right.
So like without your drum and bass, your whole building will collapse, right? So you have a foundation of drum and bass, then you can put in your buildings, which is your chords, which kind of forms your chord progression,
Right.
right? And then from there, you can put on the facade that kind of
Right.
envelopes your song, perhaps.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's quite cool because like the I think your music is pretty unique lah, and I think a lot of people who also create stuff, whether it's music or creative things like art and whatever, it's all based on our own personal journey and experiences, and for you it just happens to be architectural of sorts lah, right? That's why like when you kind of create certain things in different mediums, and in your case music, it kind of reflects a little bit of your thought process in your journey in architecture. I think it's quite cool lah. Yeah.
I certainly hope it reflects in the music, although electronic music, you need to maybe sit down and listen to it quite a few times on replay to like really understand the intricacies of it. But most definitely that creative gene is in me. Also not just in music, also
in other things,
music, architecture. I also do 3D printing on the side,
Yes,
that kind of thing.
yes.
So there's
You
I
like to
think
build stuff.
in both of us, there is this kind of need to learn new things and get involved in new things,
Right.
and constantly be creating. I think that's
Correct.
a
Just
really
that maybe
great-
the medium of expression might be different,
Might be
for
different.
us, but it's the concept is the same lah. To create and be creative.
yeah.
Right. If someone is keen to connect with you, to check out your music and to check out your works, right, where can they actually find you online?
Okay, so you can find me at Mitch Advent, probably everywhere: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. That's where you can find me.
Nice. Okay. So if you enjoy architecture and you like music, you can connect with Mitch at Mitch Evans.
Yep.
And yes, thank you so much for coming in today.
All right, thanks for
Mitch.
having me.
And look forward to you finally becoming an architect. And hopefully next time when before you end off, right, I seem to recall like a long time ago, I know you for a while, a long time ago, you seem to have designed this shop in Jewel, right? Do you remember, or is my mind playing tricks on me?
Okay, yeah. So that was with the husband and wife company. I would like to shout out them. Can I shout?
Yeah. Please.
They're called MJKY Architects. At that point of time, we were doing two shops. It's an interior design project lah. We were doing one in Jewel for Nice, and we were also doing Design Orchard. Which at that point of time was operated by Nice lah. Now, of course, Nice has closed down.
Right.
I'm not sure who is handling it. But Design Orchard is still around. If you would like to see what me and this husband and wife company, what we created, you can have a look at Design Orchard.
Wow,
the
I
shop
didn't
at
know that.
Jewel is not there anymore. So
sad.
yeah.
I seem to remember because that was one of your very first few like real projects, right? Like
Yes.
we can walk in, you can see that
Yes.
type of projects. Yeah, so I thought that was quite cool.
Yeah.
MJKY.
Yeah, they're called MJKY. Yeah.
Nice. That's what you were saying.
Oh yeah. The Design Orchard one is a very good idea of like what you can do with parametric design, because they have a nice wooden ceiling that's kind of wavy and flowing.
Right.
If you ever notice lah.
I don't know. Yeah.
What we did at Jewel was a bit more traditional, but we actually got a really nice uncle, a wood craftsman, to design this clamshell shape for us, kind of reminiscent of the Malayan, right? And it kind of helped to frame up the entrance of that Jewel shop back then. But now it's not there anymore.
So Design Orchard is still available for us to observe.
Yeah. In terms of my public projects.
Yeah. Correct.
Yeah. If you want to look at a semiconductor building, you could go to Tampines. There's a lot of industrial buildings there. If you Yeah, logistics buildings. If you want to take a trip all the way to Tuas can be a beautiful place sometimes. Yeah, especially in the evening when the sun sets here.
Right, yeah, I think so. All right, man. Thanks for coming in, Mitch.
Yeah.
Appreciate your sharing on your journey to become an architect.
All right.
And we'll see you next time on the One at a Time podcast. Peace.